Hello everyone, I am Kevin and I'm back again bringing you another episode of Git Guud. And this time around we will be covering everything you need to know about scavenging. If you haven't already, watch part 1 as it covers combat, something that is very important if you want to master the skill of scavenging, as there are some situations where you'll have to get your hands dirty to get what you are after. For this guide, we will be starting from the beginning of the game and moving towards late game scavenging, as they will differ from each other both in difficulty and in sparsity. However, we will also cover some ground rules for scavenging that will help with the process and ensure your safe return home after every run. I do want everyone to say hello to Mario Bianchi. This angry Italian man will be guiding us through our journey on this series for most of the videos instead of my other character that I already have leveled. Let's not waste any more time and jump right in. Hold up, skirty pants. Before you walk out the door and into enemy territory, there's something we need to cover prior to your endeavor. Do you even know where you're going? What you are even looking for? The key to a successful loot run is to have a plan and know what you need and what you want. Without one, you will be mindlessly roaming around the city risking a bite from your fellow citizens of Knox County. To start, it is strongly advised that you organize the loot in your base so you know what you are in need of. Need help organizing? What you see on the screen is how I organize my storage room. Now keep in mind that I do use crates stacked 3 high for my storage room. So a 1x1 means there is a single column of crates for that item. And then if you see a 2x1, it means there are 2 columns of crates, and a 2x2 is 4 columns of crates. I then put all my food into the kitchen and create a separate room for my armory. My armory is usually sorted as you see on your screen. An organized base is an organized mind, right? This will allow you to examine your supplies and see what you need to make preparing for a run easier. Remember when you're preparing for a loot run to list out what you need by importance. Obviously, you don't want to risk your survivor's life trying to find something not exactly important for your survival, like metalworking or carpentry supplies, as these are more luxury items and not something that will kill your character if you don't have it. When listing out your wants and needs, you need to prioritize food and water over everything else, as these two will be the most necessary and is the only loot worth risking your life for. After the electricity shuts off, you should also bring gas into importance, as any farmed crops, caught fish, or meat from trapped animals may spoil if your generator shuts off for a long period of time. Of course, with any of my guides, there are some rules when out and about scavenging items. These rules are even more important when looting highly populated areas like West Point, Muldraugh, and Louisville, as it will not be easy to loot these areas. If the loot is in a building, make sure you have multiple ways out, as you may not be able to leave the same door you entered. Loot buildings with extreme caution, because if there are a lot of zombies in it, you could potentially get bit while you are looting as you are distracted. Be ready to fight when you open doors, as there may be zombies right on the other side. Don't get cornered. Always have a spare duffel bag on you, as you can equip it in your secondary and carry extra items. Carry a couple sheet ropes in your backpack, as you may need it to escape the second floor of a building if things go sideways. With these rules and preparations out of the way, let's start your first month. When you first start the game and secure your starter base, you will soon come to realize that you're going to need supplies. The first month is the make or break point of your entire game and can determine your survivor's longevity in this unforgiving, apocalyptic world of Knox County. Especially since the first month will see a lot less zombies than late game, meaning you can most likely get some high value loot while the zombies are not at their max population, which will reach its peak on the 28th day by default. It is recommended that you scavenge locally in the city you started at, as it should provide you with everything that you need. However, there is a certain time frame that you have to loot before you may endanger yourself with everyone's favorite day, Helicopter Day. Sometime between July 15th and July 19th, assuming you started on July 9th, default starting day, you will be visited by your very close friend, the helicopter. If you are in the middle of a loot run while this bad boy or girl comes by, you might have a horde fall down on you and take your survivor's life in a second. So it is a good idea to start your loot run before July 15th, and when that day rolls around, work on your base until after the helicopter makes its visit. Just remember, if you hide in your house, the helicopter will not stay very long and might not attract a lot of zombies or any at all, as long as you stay away from windows and doors. From my experience with the helicopter, the best place to hide is in a windowless room, as the helicopter will not be able to spot you and will leave rather quickly. Also, while you're out and about looting, before the helicopter event, it is a good idea to break into parked cars and check the radio for the emergency broadcast station. This radio station is random every game, so you have to find it in your own world. This radio channel will notify you at the very end of a broadcast if air activity is detected. This can be checked at 8 a.m. every day and will give you a warning of a helicopter visit. On helicopter day, it is advised that you do not make a loot run, but read a skill book or two in a windowless room. So with that bit of information out of the way, we will shape our first week based on the fact that we will be visited by the helicopter. Before we dive into looting, you need to remember to be in your house near a TV at 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. for the life and living episodes that will fast track your skill building. If you don't care about cooking skills or foraging, fishing, trapping skills, at the very least, least, watch the 12 p.m. show, which is woodcraft and can get you a high carpentry level before the broadcast stop. Also keep in mind, Exposure Survival episode that plays at 6 p.m. will also provide carpentry XP, which I believe to be the campfire episode. Your first week, you need to prioritize food and water, specifically perishable foods from fridges and freezers that will go bad after the electricity shuts off. Canned foods are more important late game, as after the power shuts off, the fridge food will rot and you will have to rely on farmed crops, trapped animals, and non-perishable foods for your survival. This is the time where I love to make loot runs to the nicer houses of Rosewood or Riverside, depending on where I decide to spawn, as they are loaded with meats, butters, and ice cream, which are high in calories for easy weight management, and have garages attached to them so you can find generator and gas cans early, along with the carpentry items you may want to fortify your house with. You can also find skill books and bookshelves within the house that you can read for extra experience points for easier leveling. While you are there, you might as well collect some garbage bags from trash cans, as you can turn them into rain collector barrels for water collection when the water goes out, which is usually the first to stop working. However, that is not always the case. Just be careful going into houses, as some of them might be alarmed, and a house alarm will attract the zombies from all over within a large radius around it. If you do happen to trigger one, it is strongly advised that you get out of the area before they get there, as you will more than likely be overpowered by the vast number of infected coming towards that noise. Also, be careful entering houses, as you may accidentally stumble upon a birthday party or sporting event, which usually contains a good number of infected. Once you have built up a collection of food and other supplies you may want from these houses, you can use the lower zombie population the first week to get into places like a school or a bookstore and collect skill books and magazines. You want to focus on getting carpentry skill books and the generator magazine early, that way you're prepared for adding extra fortifications to your base and able to connect your generator so you have power after the power grid fails. A key tip is to check the mailboxes if you're having difficulty finding the generator magazine, as they can be found in mailboxes as well as bookshelves. If you do not like the hassle of finding the generator magazine, you can also use the more traits mod to give your survivor the generator knowledge trait and already know how to use the generator at the start of a game. During this time, you may also want to consider looting a medical supply place, as this can get you stocked up on things that you need later, such as beta blockers, bandages, antidepressants, suture needles, and the like. If you're in Rosewood, there is not only the Rosewood medical place by the bookstore, but there's also a nurse's office in the school, which will provide plenty of medical supplies. If you're on Riverside, there is a Gigamart that provides a good amount of basic medical supplies. However, there's also a Pharma-Hug in the city close to the Gigamart, about a block north, and a nurse's office in the school as well. Muldra only has a single doctor's office by the rich houses on the east side of town. However, it is stocked to the rim with medical supplies. If you're absolutely insane and spawned in West Point, fear not. You can find medical supplies in the school's nurse's office, the Gigamart, and the Pharma-Hug. I'm not going to dive into Louisville just yet, as if you decided to download a mod to be able to spawn there, you probably already know what you're doing and don't need to watch this video anymore. Don't forget, you can also find small amounts of medical supplies in stores, gas stations, and houses. Survivor houses can be a great place to find medical supplies as well. With any extra time you have until helicopter day, you can spend it either working on your base or finding a car with a key, assuming you didn't make the mistake of starting as a burglar, as hot wiring skill is not at all hard to learn with 1 electrical skill and 2 mechanical skills. Once you find a car, secure a gas station so you can easily fill it up. It might even be a good idea to grab an extra generator from your scavenging and drop it off at the gas station you secure. Remember, they are found in sheds, garages, storage units, and the border camp in South Louisville. However, I doubt you will go to Louisville for your first generator. After the helicopter visit and maybe some extra work on your base, you should be prepared to go on a weapons run, as it will be helpful when looting areas like the factories just west of Muldra, which is a great place to get a lot of nails and other building supplies. What you are looking for in a weapons run are places like a fire department, police station, and survivor houses. Just remember, these places are usually heavily populated with zombies, so you will need to remind yourself of everything we have covered in our combat episode. If you are looking mainly for great melee weapons, you can venture around town and look for houses with boarded windows. These are survivor houses and typically contain many different weapons, both melee and range. However, they normally contain a lot of zombies both inside and out, so you'll need to prepare to take them on before attempting to loot the place. If you are skilling your axe levels and are in Rosewood, a quick trip to the fire station will typically grant you with plenty of axes to use. The great part about the fire station, it is pretty easy to get into without having to kill zombies that linger around it, as long as you are careful. Now, if you're looking for guns and ammo early, you will probably be looking at police stations. I highly recommend the Rosewood police station, as it can provide you with plenty of guns and ammunition while also being relatively easy to access without the need of killing a massive horde of infected, unlike the police station in Muldra or the prison outside of Rosewood. You will need a hammer and a screwdriver to dismantle the doors leading into the armory. Be extra careful looting police stations, as the armory is normally a one exit room with no windows, meaning it is an easy place to get cornered. Hey, you made it past your first month. It only gets more difficult from here. Now that you have made it past your first month, the water is most likely out, the electricity has most likely shut off, and your zombie population is now at its peak, meaning your scavenging runs are most likely going to be pretty dangerous. This is about the time when you want to focus on weapons and ammunition, as they will be handy when clearing out a place to set up a forward operating base, or even another base entirely. I mean, let's face it, you aren't going to remain in your starting town forever, and having multiple safe places to sleep, at least one in every town, is vital for loot runs outside your main base. So I highly recommend when you visit a new town to secure a base location that you can stay at while there. Before you start traveling, have you found a sledgehammer yet? Sledgehammers are vital for base expansions, removing walls and whatnot. However, you also need a sledgehammer to get into the gun store in West Point, as the loot within it is hidden behind a fence. A sledgehammer can also come in handy to sneak into Louisville without having to go through the border camp and risking getting bit while opening the fences. If you haven't found a sledgehammer on your scavenging run, you can possibly find these in Rosewood Fire Station, any garage, warehouses, survivor houses, or even in the back of pickup trucks or on the ground around it in construction zones, which is a randomly placed car like a car wreck. However, you'll know if you found one of these pickup trucks, as there will most likely be construction worker zombies around it and traffic cones on the road. Keep in mind, sledgehammers can also be used as an alternative means of an escape in a room that only has one exit, such as a police department armory. So keep an eye out when you are looting for one of these, as it is important to have. Late game weapons and ammunition will most likely be looted at more populated areas like the prison outside of Rosewood and police station in Muldra. It could even drag you to the gun store in West Point, the South Louisville Border Camp's armory tent, or even the police department in Louisville. Just keep in mind, the Louisville Police Department is going to be heavily populated and somewhere that I do not recommend you using guns at, as you will not only attract every zombie from within the police department, but you will drag every zombie from a block over in all directions. It also sits in the most populated area of Louisville, so trust me when I say this is going to be a late game loot run. I would highly recommend the armory at Rosewood Prison. It is a more realistic choice, as you need high sneak and nimble skills to do well in the northwestern part of Louisville. Not to forget to mention the fact that the armory at the Louisville Police Department sits at the end of a narrow tunnel and is a dead end, meaning it is likely that a horde will follow you there and is almost a guaranteed death. For late game farming supplies, carpentry supplies, or anything you'll find in a garage or tool shop, the factories just west of Muldra can provide you with many of these things that you need. You can also find these supplies in Louisville in the city's industrial zones, which you can find on the map marked with black buildings. However, these factories are also in the northwestern area of Louisville and heavy populated with the infected. As a matter of fact, once you are living in Louisville, you won't find much of a need to venture outside of it, as it contains every type of loot possible, unlike the small towns. There's even a baseball bat factory that you can loot for long blunt melee weapons. However, be careful here as well, since it will be surrounded by the infected. Louisville also holds 2 VHS stores and 2 or 3 gigamarts that are great places to loot for canned foods or even rotten food sacks for composters. As far as late game looting goes, you should resort to the first video in this guide series, as you might need to loot on the run rather than trying to clear a building. Just grab some items and move on. However, there really isn't much left to cover, as you should already be set pretty well from the first month, but unless you have loot respawn on, you will eventually need to loot in much more dangerous locations. Late game, you are going to need to take risks to get you what you want, so try not to get bit, and remember, always have a way out. Now that we have covered scavenging the first month and beyond, you should have the knowledge of how and where to loot for certain items that you may need throughout your run. However, I can't tell you how to scavenge, as you will need to develop these skills on your own. Only you can decide the best way to scavenge based on your playstyle. To recap, make sure you prioritize food and water over everything else, then stock up on medical supplies and carpentry supplies, as you will want to secure a base, and also scavenge for skill books, as they will help your survivor with sustainability and survival. Make sure you don't loot between July 15th and July 19th, as the helicopter will visit in that time frame, and you don't want to be caught in that. As you approach the day the power grid fails, you'll need to find a generator and gas cans, which you can also secure a gas station. Just make sure to leave a generator there, as well as you will need to power the pumps if you want to get gas after electricity shuts off. You'll want to grab and fuel a vehicle for looting outside your starting town, as you'll eventually run out of supplies there and need to venture to other towns to find them. Just be cautious heading northeast, as it can be quite dangerous on that side of Knox County. However, it can be extremely rewarding, especially in Louisville, as the city has everything you'll ever need. Just remember not to get cornered, and always know your exits, as you may not be able to leave the same way you came in. Thank you for watching this video. Sorry if it was a tad long. There's a lot to cover here. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like. If you absolutely hated it or just hate me in general, dislike it. If you want to follow the series, hit the subscribe button, and I promise you won't regret it. Join us next time, as we'll be covering a topic I should have started with at the beginning of the series. We will be covering character occupations and traits, and the mistakes of choosing occupations such as burglar and the like. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.